Welcome to Startup Success, the podcast for startup founders and investors. Here you'll find stories of success from others in the trenches as they work to scale some of the fastest growing startups in the world. Stories that will help you in your own journey. Startup Success starts now.
Welcome to Startup Success. Today we have Sid Puri, the head of growth at Retool, in studio. Welcome, Sid.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So if you wouldn't mind just giving a quick overview of Retool. I am sure most of our listeners are familiar with what you guys are doing, but for those that aren't, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so Retool is essentially a fast way to build internal tools. What we give our customers is essentially all the building blocks of building an application. And we typically see most customers build it for the internal business applications. So any kind of back office tools, refund dashboards, customer support tools, sales tools. What we think is that, a lot of our energy goes towards building engineering effort towards the end. I'm going to say that again. So what we see is that a lot of the engineering bandwidth ends up going to building these internal back office tools. And we believe that engineers should focus on what's important to customers and customer-facing stuff. And so we want Retool to do the heavy lifting of letting you build not from scratch, but using our platform.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do, the amount of time that you save, and then how you can allow engineers to focus on, some of the other projects. I've seen a lot of case studies. It's amazing. So that being said, you helped launch a startup program that Retool offers. If you could tell us about that.
Yeah. So, when I joined Retool, it was about 2 years back, and I'm based out of India over here. I was looking after growing Retool in India. And one of the big things I noticed was what we could really leverage is maybe giving a lot of, startups and venture capitalists, incubators, whatnot, just credits to get our platform going in their networks, get Retool in front of startups so they can start building. We didn't want startups to worry about the price from the get-go. We know everyone's really cash-strapped in their early days. We were ourselves. I think we started off on Azure credits, and that's how we ended up using Azure as our platform. And that's something we truly believe that we wanted Retool to be ubiquitous for all developers, and without supporting 5-person startups or garage startups, it's never really going to be ubiquitous. So we started off by giving out $1,200 in credits for last year, and it was something we launched out publicly. We said anyone who had founded a company in the last 5 years that, quote unquote, was a startup, we would essentially give them $1,200 in credits. And, that bet really paid off, and we saw a lot of traction with a lot of startups trying us out. And we decided to expand the program this year to $25,000 in credits. And so we're giving every startup $25,000 in credits. We've expanded our criteria. We want more and more companies to try it out and get a feel of Retool.
That's a great, very generous offer. And I know you were instrumental in coming up with the $25,000 in credits. Just for founders listening, walk us through kind of the deliberations, testing that came around pricing the program, because I think it's an interesting exercise for founders to see how you came up with that kind of offering as they're working towards, offerings of their own.
Yeah, I think we started with $1,200 last year, and the logic behind that was a seat costs $10 a user for the startup plan, and we thought we'll give it to 10 users, multiply that by 12 months, and so $1,200. What we also had like I mentioned, we had partnerships with, Brex, YC, Sequoia, and we had different credit offerings with different, with each of these, and we didn't really know what was the right number to land on. So we just saw different segments, and that created cohorts for us. So we could see if a company got $10,000 in credits, what would really, how much more adoption would we see? And, we initially thought, startups, they will be small and they won't have as many use cases. But since startups are very strapped for resources and engineering resources, we see a lot of startups building on Retool from the day one if we give it to them early. And if the credits are larger, we saw obviously more people utilizing them. And one of the things was, why don't we just give it out for free? And, we say 1 year free. But I think the dollar amount really matters, because firstly, I think people actually start anchoring to that price then, that this is how much it actually costs. And so that's why we landed up on giving $25,000 for a year. It's still new. I think it took a lot of internal selling and figuring it out. But the results from last year's segments really helped us understand after 1 year what is the usage that someone ends up with if we give them credits. We compare that to people who sign up, just by themselves, paying from day one, and then we can see whether it's really spiking usage. And for us, I think the best thing for us is the more people use Retool from the beginning, the more stickier the product becomes.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great example for everyone listening of how, you roll something out, you tested it, and then you took information from, usage to build on that program. And those kind of iterations, I think, are what cause things to grow, flourish, and prosper, which you found. And Retool is doing exceptional. You mentioned to me that while you've been there, it's scaled from 50 to 300 employees. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So a lot of founders listening, that's the kind of growth that they're looking for. What are some of the observations you found as the team has scaled in that way?
It's interesting. I think when Retool shut its offices for COVID, it was 15 employees that were going into an office, right? And after that was 2 years of COVID. So the thing that was actually mostly changing was the number of people you were seeing on the all hands meeting, how many Zoom screens. You didn't really feel it because you weren't going to an office. And Retool had opened its doors again, the office for 200 people. And I still haven't been to the office. So initially, I think it was both hyper growth as well as hyper growth during remote, which made it both a challenge and at the same time, easy to hire people across different locations, easy to onboard. We built a lot more muscle on how do we onboard people. And I think what really changes is processes. I think you hire leaders, you end up hiring leaders and testing out. We've been the startup program is a good example, right? We used to test out things and we didn't really need as many approvals and processes. But when we wanted to relaunch the program 2 years out, we suddenly had a full-fledged sales team. And we had a team that focused on startups. We would be taking away potentially their revenue. So we needed to have more processes in set so that we can scale more efficiently and our teams can scale. And I think that is something that changes a lot. I think when you're a 50-person company, everyone can do everything. And when you're 300 people, it's really important that we're keeping the ship moving in the right direction, keeping everyone on track, and we have the right processes in place so we're scaling properly.
Two things jumped out on me there. One, onboarding, and then the process. First, I think onboarding, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because when you have a small number of employees, onboarding's different. It can be very casual. You're all there to help somebody ramp up and get up to speed. But when you're a huge company growing quickly, onboarding can be a huge time drain for those that are already there. But then you want your new employees to ramp quickly. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And then the other was the processes, which I think, again, when you're a smaller company, it can be more informal. You can all make it work. But then as you grow, you need more formalized process in place to deal with all these employees. Is there something you recommend around kind of the onboarding for your team that you found to be particularly effective?
So I think you were completely right. So when I joined Retool, my onboarding was write your own 30, 60, 90 plan and go ahead and execute it, right? So, and I had to basically ask different people and go into different retool apps to figure out how things worked. Possible at 50 employees, and it was really easy to ask one person, and everyone knew who was that one person to ask for the question you had. What tends to happen when you talk about these processes you need to build, one of the things that worked really well that I really personally liked was when we would onboard new team members, after a month of onboarding, we would ask them to write up what was not good about their onboarding. And then we would
That's
basically
great.
try and fix it. Right. So we iterated on the onboarding process. This is for like a specific team I have in mind. This is specifically the success team. I was working with the success team, and initially it was 5 of us. It was easy enough to ask questions, but as we started growing, we were adding 5 people in a month sometimes. So we set up a buddy system, and we, decided what is the right length of time before we put people into the main project. It might have started much earlier back in the day. Now it became like longer, like 5-6 weeks. What are the rotations they should have with different teams, and who all they should set up coffee chats with? And we built a full process for it. Like there's onboarding documents for each person when they join, and now it's like 300 people. I don't even know how people are on board now. I'm sure it's very seamless, very smooth. Always room for improvement as companies scale, but I think from the 50 to 300, that's I think how we onboarded, and I think remote was definitely another added challenge on that.
Excellent advice. So you talk about scaling that team. Talk to us about what you did in India.
Yeah, I mean in India it was funny. When David and Anthony, the founders of Retool, reached out to me to take on this role of leading. I told them that why? I said, you are already in the US, you don't have an EMEA office, you don't have an APAC office, why India? And one of the things that stuck with me, what David said, was he said that, we believe that India is going to be a massive market in the next 10 years. And Retool being a company that's where we want developers to use it, India has one of the largest developer populations in the world. So it's important for us to get our India strategy right. And even if we just want someone there who can make the right decisions, right? So it doesn't mean that I said, revenue is going to be obviously a challenge in India. You're going to make a lot more revenue in the US. But it was mostly a 10-year sort of bet that we want some presence in India. Honestly, the things that I did scale India was I wore the hat of doing every aspect of the business in India. So I did customer support, I did sales, I did marketing, I did all the things with the help of the teams in the US, which is what I think had worked in the early years. So right in the beginning, I think it's really important that I have the customer pulse, what are the Indian startups that I work with, that Retool works with, what are the problems they face, and then tweak it, right? I think pricing always is a different ballgame in India. So I worked with our head of sales to be this is what we've learned from the last quarter, and of these are the reasons that the deals fell through. So what can we change? And like I said, we used to change stuff and try it out, and if it worked, then we just kept that process the way it was.
I keep hearing a theme in everything that you've talked about today, and it's how you have a plan, you implement it, but then you're looking for feedback, right? You're constantly taking data, feedback, and then iterating, changing on that. Whether, what you've talked about with your startup program, onboarding, scaling, and now India, it really shows, I think it's an important lesson for people listening on the importance of not just tunnel vision, right? Taking in data points, feedback that you get. I mean, it sounds like that was really helped with your success in India.
I'm lucky that I was trusted with a lot of responsibility to take action. I think startups, what they really need is a bias for action. And so experimentation is a really easy way to build that muscle for bias for action. And that's why, you'll get negative feedback all the time but you're taking more shots on goal. So therefore you're more likely to score.
So we always kind of wrap up the show with general advice for startup founders listening. It's run the gamut. If you wouldn't mind sharing some.
Yeah, so I come from an engineering background. I used to always think that and I think YC and a lot of people have told you, like, build the product and they'll come. What my opinion has changed a lot working over the last like 7-8 years has been, I think go to market is really hard. It's really important to know where your customers live and like how are you going to reach them, right? So if you're building a sales tool, you got to sit where all the people who are actually making the decisions for what sales tools we need and why is it really a problem. I think you could build a very, very basic product and you could see a lot of demand, and you could build a really complex product that you think is is actually what everyone needs. But if you don't have a good go-to-market strategy and if you don't know where your customers live and what their problems are, it's going to be a big problem. I think engineering is becoming easier and easier every year. What's becoming really hard is finding your customers and like really solving a problem that matters.
Well said, because we hear that a lot on this show, solving a problem that matters. And you emphasize that a few times, and using that in your go-to-market strategy to help find your customers. It sounds like you've done that, again and again here with Retool, especially in India, right? And is that something you're continue to focus on, India right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing India. I've also been recently working with our new product lines. So we launched Retool Workflows recently. I think by the time this podcast comes out, we'll be launching Retool Mobile. So we're becoming a platform, and we're trying to like figure out our strategy there. So I've been moonlighting on those teams as well.
That's so exciting. So if I'm a founder listening, where do I go to get more information on the Retool Startup Program?
Oh, retool.com/startups.
Easy.
Yeah, and as soon as you sign up, hopefully if my processes are all set up, then you should get the credits within 24 hours.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, Sid. A lot of really tactical, helpful information for founders. We like to do shows like this because it's things they can directly put to use. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Kate. It's been fun.
You've been listening to Startup Success. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Like what you hear? Tap the number of stars you think the show deserves in Apple Podcasts. For more tools and resources for your own startup success, check out burklandassociates.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.